Hello, this is F2 Fan 5000, and we're finally going to discuss 2025 Formula 2 predictions. And we've had to wait all this time because we've been waiting for the grid to be fully announced, and it's only just happened on the 18th of February or 17th of February, whatever it is. Less than a month out from the first race. Isn't that exciting? If only Formula 1 was like that, still having drivers announced a month out from the first race. Imagine how much more fun silly season would be, but lucky we're Formula 2 fans. I have to say I've got a lot of surprises for the driver lineups. There was a mass exodus from Formula 2 at the end of last season, drivers just moving on or running out of budget or realising their time had passed. And I thought some of the drivers from F3 that would make the jump up to F2, but they didn't. So it's left a lot of holes for some surprise announcements. I thought Tim Tramnitz would make the jump up to F2. I think he looked fairly accomplished in F3 last season, not particularly quick, but over the last 2 years he's built up a good reputation. Callum Voisin obviously won a race last year at Belgium. He also finished first in Silverstone. I think he got a time penalty. Surely if you're winning 2 races in F3, you're ready to step up to F2. It's a surprise to see Alex Dunn and not Callum Voisin take the Rodent seat. I thought Noel Leon, Mari Boyer, Nikola Solov, maybe Lawrence Van Hoopen. These are drivers I were expecting to jump up to Formula 2. Maybe even Tommy Smith, a guy with a lot of money, by the F2 seat. But that didn't happen, and it's left a gap. We've got Chan Shields, John Bennett, Alex Dunn, Max Esterson. I weren't expecting these drivers on the F2 grid in 2025. Maybe that's a good thing. It's make it interesting. Most of them we've seen a glimpse of them already. But I think if the 2025 Formula 2 grid is very strong. It's not quite as stacked as 2024, but very close. Very close. There's at least 8 drivers, 8, 9, 10 drivers that are very strong, worth looking out for in the coming years. I think the real contenders, I've narrowed it down to 9 drivers who I think are real contenders for the title this year, undoubtedly. Leonardo Fornaroli, the reigning F3 champion. Arvid Lindblad, fresh off winning Formula Regional Oceania. Richard Verschoor, experienced. Luke Browning, Dino Beganovic, Jack Crawford, Gabriele Mini, last year's F3 runner-up. Victor Martins, a former F3 champion. And Joshua Dirksen. Surely the main crux of battle in 2025 is between these 9 drivers. For me, if I think the champion is one of those drivers, I want to apply the age test. To me, the age test is that I believe the Formula 2 champion is more likely to be someone aged between 20 and 22. And using that, I narrow it down to 5 drivers. Dino Beganovic, Gabriele Mini, Leonardo Fornaroli, Joshua Dirksen, and Crawford. And these drivers all bring something different to the table. Fornaroli brings his consistency and his careful driving skills. Mini and Beganovic are both very fast drivers. They have raw pace, but they both have some negative attributes they need to fine-tune out. Then they can be the real package. Joshua Dirksen is an absolute wild card. Came out of nowhere. A Formula Regional midfielder who stepped up to AIX and was winning races. It's almost like a fairy tale, AIX didn't even score a point in 2023, and here he is winning races with them. And then Jack Crawford is young but highly experienced. He's only going to be 20 this season. Except for Lindblad, I think he's one of the youngest drivers on the 2025 grid, but he'll be in his third year. Surely he's learned some things along the way. I'll bet one of those 5 drivers is going to be the champion in 2025. Now, this is a team sport because the drivers don't exist in a vacuum by themselves, but they also have a team they drive for, and that greatly affects the results that they eventually get at the end of the year. So we want to look at the different teams and see how they're going to go. Let's start with Invicta. Fornaroli is the F3 champion, but let's look at Invicta. They have strong form over the past 5 or 10 years. Before, when they were virtuosi Russian time, they've always had drivers like up the top, like third, second in the championship. Sometimes they win the championship. They've won the team's championship last year. They are very much the form team. Now, Fornaroli's a form driver. He's the reigning Formula 3 champion. And unlike most of the drivers in Formula 3, he's very averse to accidents, which is amazing. That's half the battle, in my opinion. Not having to limp back to the pits with a broken front wheel or a puncture or a broken wing or crash causing an accident. No, you don't get points after that. So the fact that Fornaroli has avoided all that is, I think, fabulous attribute. Can he up his pace? He's not known for his outright pace, but he's still young. He can work on, if he can be faster further up the grid in qualifying, he'll be a real threat for the title. As for Roman Stanek, I think he's going to do better than he did at Trident. I think we didn't see the best from him at Trident. However, I don't think he's going to be on the level of Fornaroli, and I'd be very disappointed in Fornaroli if Roman Stanek was matching him. But Stanek might be there fighting for, 6th, 7th place on a regular basis, maybe getting the odd podium, sprint race win. Why not? Obviously, he'll do better than at Trident because Trident always struggle in F2. But one thing is very similar for Invicta as it was last year. Last year they had an F3 champion and they had a very much an F2 midfielder, strong but definitely in the midfield. They had Cushmine in, Bortoletto. Now they've got Stanek and Fornaroli. Maybe that works for them. Campos. Campos are very interesting. I don't see this team trending in the right direction based on last season. At the beginning of last year, when the ground effects car was fresh, Campos was one of the strongest teams. The car had really strong race pace, and then over the season, especially after Belgium, and that just fell away. And they've made mistakes that I think cost Isaac Hadjar a lot of points, if not the championship. At Hungary, they didn't get him out on time. And then in Baku, they had this bizarre double brake failure in the qualifying. That's put both their drivers on the back foot. So I don't see Campos as one of the best teams. Even though they finished second last year, I feel like in the second half of the year they dropped off. And now they've got a very unpredictable lineup. They've got the youngest driver on the field, which is Arvid Lindblad, who's a very strong prospect for the future. But he's only 17 and a half. And as we've seen with the likes of Behrman, Antonelli and Pourchaire, when you join F2 when you're only 17 and a half, it's hard to go and win the title in your rookie season. I suspect Lindblad will finish somewhere around 6th or 7th in the championship, and that might just be good enough for him to get into F1. He's obviously he's on riding a wave of confidence because he won Formula Regional Oceania, but I don't see him winning the F2 title this year. And Campos, as I said, can be a bit of a mess, and his teammate Pepe Marti can be a mess. And Pepe Marti throughout his career shows flashes of brilliance, but then he's inconsistent and he can be a bit incident prone too. Hopefully we get the version of Pepe Marti that showed up in the first half of F3 in 2023 when he was getting wins and fighting for the championship, rather than the 2024 version, which is a bit very hit and miss. Coming to MP Motorsport, this is a team that's trending upwards generally over the past 5 years. As for last season, I think they started strong and finished strong. They didn't go forward, but I think having Richard Verschoor, an experienced driver, will help with setup. Hopefully that all helps to push Oliver Goethe forward. I don't think there's much to say about Verschoor. I think he just needs the right car and he'll prove what he can do. He's had a Monaco pole last year. He's got plenty of podiums last year, and he was doing that in a Trident. Very few drivers have been able to do what he did last year in a Trident team, and MP seem to be on the up. Can Oliver Goethe match Verschoor? Can he back him up? I'm not sure, but I'd be surprised to see MP falling out of the top 5 in the team's championship. I think Goethe is one of the stronger second drivers, if you like. I have big expectations of Richard Verschoor this year. I think a fairly underrated driver. Didn't always get the best teams in the past. The Formula One ship has probably sailed, but I don't see why he can't have a good career somewhere else. And 2025 might be the springboard he needs to go to Japan or America, hypercars. I'm not sure what the plan is for the future, but hopefully Verschoor gets it done in 2025 with MP Motorsport. As for High-Tech hit the ground running in the ground effects era last year with a string of podiums for Paul Aron. Can they maintain that form against strong, powerful rivals like ART, Prema, Invicta? That's the question. I'm not sure. Obviously, they struggled a little bit towards the end of last season, but in their favour, I think the High-Tech pairing of Luke Browning and Dino Beganovic is the strongest pairing on the F2 grid this year. Browning has been a driver who has taken his time to move up the junior single-seater ladder. But now that he's grown, and he's a little bit older than some of his rivals, he's already going to be 23 this year, but he's grown into a very strong driver, very quick, and he just needs to iron out some of his mistakes that he makes, and I think he'll be in the shot for fighting for the title. As for Dino Beganovic, he was a highly rated Ferrari Junior, struggled to make an impression in Formula 3 that really slowed down the momentum of his career, but when he sat in the Dams car at the end of last year in Qatar and Abu Dhabi, he was very impressive, and I hope that's the driver we see in 2025, and if he is, I'm sure that High-Tech can win the 2025 Teams Championship. I think that's the strongest driver pairing. I don't doubt that. Coming to Prema, they've struggled with the ground effects car, struggled with setup, and they couldn't go very far with two very strong drivers last year, although it has to be said, young and fairly inexperienced drivers. And this season, I'm a little bit worried because they've got Sebastian Montoya. I'm not sure how he is with setup or anything, but he definitely has a lot of incidents. Fornaroli and Montoya are opposites because Fornaroli always avoids incidents and Sebastian Montoya always finds himself at the scene of the accident somehow, especially when you go to Austria, Red Bull Ring. What is it? Turn 4, going down the hill, always a front wing, broken suspension. Like, I think he's a faster driver than people realise. I think he's got pace somewhere inside there, but he needs to work on his weaknesses, sometimes in qualifying and definitely with these incidents on the track. And I don't know how that's going to affect Gabriele Mini. I think sometimes in Formula 2 you need a strong teammate to push forward the setup of the car. A rookie as well as Montoya. Montoya I'm not sure about. Obviously Prema is a very strong team. This is Prema power team. I mean, they have a lot of data in the bank. They're a very powerful team. Mini has a very, very strong junior record. So, but he also has he's obviously stronger than Montoya, but he still has issues with consistency. Like last year at Hungary, he was missing, and sometimes he has incidents. So he needs to work on that. But if he does, he could be a title contender. I don't see Prema winning the team's championship. As I said, it'll be high tech. I think Prema are going to struggle. Dams is a team that was very strong historically and one of the oldest Formula 2 teams. More recently, they've struggled. Jack Crawford can be a very strong driver, but he needs to work on his qualifying and his qualifying setups. Well, last season you would always hear, the car, we can't get in the right sweet spot for qualifying, struggle with the qualifying setups. And then Bogdanovic just sat in the car in the last 2 rounds and put it in the top 5 both times. Jack Crawford usually goes forward in races. He's actually quite underrated. He has very good racecraft. But what he needs to do is work on the qualifying. As for Kushmini, he's not a bad driver either. But he's more of a Formula 2 midfielder. And I'm not sure he's the driver to help Jack Crawford with his setups. But hopefully he's learned something from being at Invicta, being in a championship winning team. ART is a team that has always been strong historically, but last year they've struggled. They've obviously struggled with the new ground effects car. The good news for them is that they were trending upwards during 2024. Victor Martins was fighting for podiums, and they've got Victor Martins again. I think they have Victor Martins. I mean, he's a very strong driver. I think he's got a couple of weaknesses. Sometimes he's caught up in a silly crash. Like remember Melbourne 2023? There's a safety car restart. He just runs into the back of Dennis Hauger. Or in the sprint race in Baku in 23. It's a shame to see him in this position. I don't think he can make it to Formula 1 even if he wins the title this year because, the way people are about third season F2 champions, they get all upset about it. I mean, 2024 ART struggled. They've been going forward, but how far can they push that car development forward? And I think they have a very unpredictable teammate for Victor Martins in Ritomo Miyata. Miyata is clearly a very strong driver, a very good driver, but he has to get on top of what it is about the way he was comfortable about how they did things in Japan versus, whatever he struggled with as they do things in Europe. Now, if he gets on top of that, I'm sure that he's going to be fighting near the front of F2. He showed a lot of feisty race pace towards the end of last year, but he kept getting time penalties. If he can unlock that potential, this can be a very strong team. I wouldn't be surprised if they were like second or third in the team's championship. But they got to unlock that car, which I think they're on their way to doing it. And they have to unlock Ritomo Miyata. And maybe ART, a very experienced team, might be the team to do that. Coming to Rodin. Rodin are a team that started off very strongly in the ground effects era. The double win for Zane Maloney last year, but then quickly fell away. Neither in F2 or F3 they have been struggling a bit and I'm not sure they quite have the drivers to push them out of F2's midfield. Alex Dunn is something sort of like a gamble because he was a very strong driver in the junior categories, but last year in F3 he struggled in F3, so I'm not sure what he's going to bring to Rodin. And Christian Mansell is a very accomplished driver. He's had a lot of podiums in Formula 3, but I'm struggling to see that he has the outright pace to take Rodin forward. It's a couple of rookies again, although Mansell had a couple of races at Trident. Maybe they're going to struggle with the car setup. I don't know, I'm not too confident for Rodin. Coming to AIX, this is a team that seems to have a lot of money coming from somewhere, but they make some strange decisions, especially with drivers. If you've seen the news in F3 recently, you're wondering why'd they pick that driver. And I think Chen Shields is in that sort of category of head scratches, and on paper, Chen Shields is probably the weakest driver on the 2025 F2 grid. I don't think he's a completely lost cause. I don't think he's one of those drivers that's going to be 3 seconds a lap slower than everyone. But can he get himself off the back row in qualifying? Can he find some pace? Maybe he has something there, but Joshua Dirksen has been a revelation. Now, can AIX improve that car? Can they push that car setup forward and provide Josh with a car that he can fight for podiums and wins with on a regular basis? And if so, can he fight for the championship? I don't see why not. Dirksen looks to be a very accomplished driver, but AIX is a little bit of a question mark. Dirksen also has some very strong drivers he's up against, so it's going to be an uphill battle, but the team definitely are trending in the right direction. Can they keep that going? Having a driver like Chen Shields, does that hold the team back in terms of setup? I don't know, maybe. But, Shields might improve a bit. Maybe he can at least get to a level of someone like Cordeal that can score the odd point now and then. Can almost feel like Cordeal would have been a good pick for AIX instead of Chen Shields. Surely he had the funding. He's got the experience. I think from last year, high tech, he knows how to set up the car. I feel like they should have gone with Cordeal instead of Shields as a second driver to Dirksen, but it's up to them. Trident always struggle in F2, and I feel as though it's not looking good for Trident. With Richard Verschoor jumping ship before the end of last season, it doesn't show that he has a lot of confidence in that team. He's moved up to MP Motorsport, where he feels he has a better opportunity to present himself well. And if Sammy Megatunov is a driver that definitely has pace, but he doesn't always have pace. And I'm sure that he can qualify maybe at the back end of the top 10 or 15th or 13th, something like that. So he can be fighting for the back end of the points, maybe for a sprint race win. But in general, I don't see them scoring big points on a regular basis. And as for Max Esterson, I don't think he's a bad driver, but this is a Formula 2. I think he's probably better than he looked. I think he sometimes has a very strong race. He's coming from a different background. He's done a lot of Formula Ford in the States. Now he's in Europe. But I don't think Trident are a very strong team in F2. I wouldn't be surprised to see Trident finish last in the team's championship. I feel like with these two rookies, it's a bit of a gamble. Not sure how they're going to go. Not sure the team is really on top of the car, on top of the ground effects era. And coming to Van Amersfoort, this is also a team that's struggling. I think they're really struggling. They had a very strong driver in Enzo Fittipaldi, highly experienced, once was a Red Bull junior, and they struggled to get results with him. Now they've got John Bennett, who's taking a big step up from GB3, which is basically British Formula 3, and Rafael Villagomez. John Bennett is, I think he's capable of making the step up to F2, but with Bennett and Villagomez, it's hard to see Van Amersfoort doing anything more than fighting for small points. Villagomez is a very good bad driver. He's always seems to sneak into the back end of the top 10, 8th, 9th place when there's on a feature race. Not every race, but every second or third race. You're like, wait, Villagomez, 8th place? So he's a very good bad driver with a bad reputation like Cordial, Deletta, and Marino Sato, these sort of drivers, but I think he's one of the better ones in that respect. And Bennett's already scored points last year at Qatar, so I think that Van Amersfoort can fight for points, for small points, but that's about it. And they have tough competition as well, so I don't think they're going to have a very strong season. I don't think they're on top of the ground effects car as much as some of the other teams are. I think that's a big shame for them. It's hard to say. It's very hard to say. It really depends on the setup of these cars. It's hard to bet against Fornaroli, but he needs to bring his consistency. He needs to find a little bit more pace too. I don't doubt that he's going to be consistent, but he's not Formula 3 anymore. He's Formula 2. If he wants to win Formula 2, he's got to bring those. He's got to at least win one feature race. Théo Pourchaire showed in 2023 you don't need to win a bunch of races to win the Formula 2 championship. And as we know, these impetuous, impatient young drivers, they have crashes. If you can avoid the crashes, a little bit of after you, sir, okay, you go into the lead of the race, I'll finish second, I still pick up 18 points, but I think Fornaroli needs to win at least one feature race. But I think he can do it. I think he's actually a very good driver. Mini probably has the strongest junior career outside of anyone except maybe Victor Martins. But I think many just depends on Prema getting that car set up correctly, and many working on those weaknesses. That if you have a 14 race weekend, you can't really afford to have 3 rounds where you don't score points or you don't have any pace. It's going to hold you back. If Mini works on that, says I have to be up there every weekend, qualifying in the top 10, then he can fight for the championship. I've got no doubt. He's got a great karting record, Formula 4 championship, Formula Regional runner-up, Formula 3 runner-up. It's very solid background. Dino Beganovic is hard to say because he struggled in F3, a Formula Regional champion, but struggled in F3. But then when he sat in the car last year, he looked fast. If he can find the old form, he definitely looked fast in F3, but somehow the results never came for whatever reason. If he gets on top of those things, he can fight for the championship. Dirksen, he's really at the... Well, what's his upper limit? He's been in the AIX, a complete surprise package of 2024. No one expected him to do anything. Everyone thought he'd be stuck on the back row of the grid and might score 1 or 2 points. But no, he's won races in the AIX car. So there's still a lot of unknowns there, even though this will be second season. AIX is a lot of unknowns. They seem to have a lot of money, a lot of backing, and yet they take these strange drivers, Shane Shields and Niels Coulin. Aren't you people backed by an investment firm in Dubai? Why do you need Shane Shields for? This is a very confusing one, but if they have the team that puts a good car together, I can't see why Dirksen can't fight for the title. But he has to bring the best of himself every week in, week out. Crawford. As I said before, Crawford needs to work on the qualifying. The rest is easy, right? He was sensational in Silverstone last year. He was unbeatable in Barcelona. But he's qualifying, in every second race he's qualifying near the back. How can you fight for a Formula 2 title if you're qualifying 19th or 20th? And then you have to make your way forward. Remember Imola? He just overtook Zane Maloney like that. It was great, but it's his 3rd season. He would have learned a lot. He has good... Crawford has very good racecraft. Very good racecraft. He has to work on the qualifying. As for some of the other drivers I mentioned earlier, Victor Martins, it's puzzling why he's in this position. You think, if you watch 2023, you can't believe that he actually finishes as low as 5th. Like, he looks so strong and he's fast, he's menacing. In qualifying, he's always up the top, and yet somehow he only finishes 5th. I think finishing 7th last year was a fabulous result. I think ART really struggled with that car in 2024. So what are they going to do about it in 2025? But Martins, I think Martins caused less accidents in 2024. If he can keep out of, accidents, and some of the accidents he had in 2024 were not his fault. Villa Gomez in Belgium, Hauger in Barcelona, these sort of things. If he can just avoid the accidents and ART bring a good car, he should walk the championship, really. He should have walked it last year. It's bizarre that such a good driver is in this situation. F3 champion, Formula Regional champion. Arvid Lindblad, I just think he's a bit too young, as I said before, a bit green, but I'm sure he's going to win a race or two, like he did last year. You can't really count him out, can you? Like, what he did last year was amazing. He's leading the F3 championship. And he's, 16? He's about to turn 17, but not quite. That is amazing. That is amazing. He's very much talent. You can't count him out. But I'm not going to back him for the championship. Not with Campos, and not being 17 and a half. I'm sorry. Richard Verschoor, he's very experienced. I don't know where he gets the money from to keep competing in Formula 2, but he's very talented. Clearly he's talented, but he doesn't really have had the opportunity. But MP, experienced driver, am I getting 2022 vibes here? Why not? He's won a race for Trident. They never win a race in Formula 2. This could be his year, why not? But I don't back him to win the championship. I back him to do well. And Luke Browning, a very fast driver. GB3 champion. F3 last year, not quite there, but very fast. Maybe caught up in too many accidents. If he can stop having accidents, don't crash in qualifying like he did last year at Hungary, of course he can fight for the title. Browning, Beganovic, High-Tech, that's going to be a very vicious combination this year in F2. You just wait and see. And some of these other teams, I'm struggling to see what they're doing with the drivers. I said Trident, they've got 2 rookies and they're not, I don't know. But anyway, that's how Formula 2 works. The drivers pay for the experience of driving the Formula 2 car, fighting for their futures. That's how it works, and that's how the way the cookie crumbles. That's the American expression, the way the cookie crumbles. I like it, actually. I've gone through the main drivers. I've gone through each team. What else can I say? I don't know, but I think it'll be tight. The last couple of seasons in F3 have been tight. Now I've got those drivers, Beganovic, Fornaroli, Mini, Browning. They're all coming to F2. They're all in strong teams. So I see that this should be a tight championship. And it's sort of like 2 sides. On one side, you've got these guys coming up from F3 that I just mentioned, Fornaroli, Browning, Mini, Beganovic. On the other side, you've got established drivers. You've got Dirksen, Verschoor and Martins. And I see that as a nice battle, between this new lot and the old lot. And I wonder who's going to come out on top. It's also, and where does Arvid Lindblad fit in all of that? But it really depends. Now, coming up soon is the testing. Once we've seen testing, we'll have a better idea. But I'm F2 Fan 5000. I'll put out my predictions before we even see the testing. But just on that, whatever you do this year, keep your eye on Martins, Dirksen and Verschoor, because these 3 drivers were very quick in testing at the end of last year. And they're experienced. They're a bit older than some of these other drivers. They're going to be lethal. So there's people to watch out for. And hopefully we have exciting races and we really enjoy it.